everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I was literally about to leave, but I have to bring this up. I have to talk about this. So recently, a Democratic senator posed the question of whether or not Russian hacking, that they have not delivered a smoking gun to prove such, constituted an act of war. Senator Jeanne Shaheen on Thursday said Congress needs to consider whether Russian cyber campaign during the U.S. presidential election was an act of war. We should think about whether it's an act of war or not, Shaheen said Thursday, referring to the election hacking. The U.S. government does not currently have a definition of what constitutes cyber warfare. A sweeping defense policy bill passed last December directs the Trump administration to spell out what actions against the United States in cyberspace may warrant a military response within the year. No. What the public needs to ask is, have you lost your goddamn mind? What the fuck is wrong with your party? What is wrong with your party? You're talking about having a conflict with a nuclear nation. Understand what we're having a conversation about right now. This is amazing to me. You lost. Your party lost. You should have lost. You had every right to lose that election. This Russian shit has nothing to do with it. You're acting as if the failure of the last 8 years, whether it was the betrayal of the nation with that god-awful TPP, whether it was giving all this money to corporate interests, or for the very least, to the very wealthy, all the while cloaking it in this fake, empathetic language to conceal how bankrupt the policy and the ideas are. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. Look, I am under no such illusions about Russia. I made the point before. Whether Russia hacked the DNC, whether Russia passed that information on for WikiLeaks, is irrelevant to me. The information was real. And not just real, if you deal with the other issues revolving around the problems with the elections, this other shit goes away. It doesn't matter. You just don't want to have that conversation. It's easier to foment a conflict with a nuclear-powered nation than having a goddamn come-to-Jesus moment about the problems and the difficulties and why the American public rejected your party. Shit, man. I mean, and then to keep using Trump as some... Look, I don't care how big that goblin is. That has nothing to do with you. And I'm going to pin your ass to the wall every time you come out with some stupid-ass thing like this, instead of actually dealing with the issues that affect actual people. Your last president, and let's put this shit in perspective. Your last president was paying terrorists to undermine a foreign government in Syria. That last president was giving weapons to essentially both sides, whether it was to multiple malicious groups. Many times, reports came out showing that the groups that the United States funded, the two separate groups, were attacking and fighting one another with those arms and resources. It's fucking insane. That same guy thought it was perfectly okay to use flying killer robots to murder women and children, including, every so often, an actual militant. Mind you, 90% of the people they murdered with those flying killer robots were innocent. They were innocent. He did not know who the fuck he was killing. He was doing it anyway. And all these libs were out here acting like, oh, there's no problem with this. There's a goddamn problem with it. There's a big problem with it. Even if you're going to go into this aspect of legislation, passing the NDA, the National Defense Authorization Act, allowing the president himself to indefinitely detain American citizens. That's your president. I mean, I don't quite understand why you believe it's okay to put people into cages indefinitely. This is amazing to me. I ask the question again, what the fuck is wrong with your party? What is wrong with your party? You know, the sad part is that the person who you actually wanted to win, the person who was running the other campaign that also failed miserably twice, She was under an FBI investigation for a year, or it might have even been more than a year, essentially running on a platform that was just arrogance, as if she was doing us a fucking favor by running for the presidency in order to stave off that other maniac. Mind you, the whole Pied Piper thing, where they were playing up batshit crazy people because they thought that was the only person she could win against, and she still couldn't win against them. Goddamn reality show hosts. You having a vagina does not allow you to take the presidency. It has nothing to do with that at all. The policy that you're going to implement, the things that you're going to do for the American public, the policy, not your vagina, is the indicator of whether or not people should vote you and put you in that office. She was even more batshit crazy than the first failure I was talking about. Her great idea, her national foreign policy experience that she talks so much about, was to put a missile defense system or an air defense system in Syria. She was trying to shoot down a Russian jet. That's her bright idea. That's her plan. We're going to shoot down a Russian jet. What the fuck is wrong with your party? Explain it to me. Explain to me the problems of your party. Personally, I think we need to start drug testing Congress, because you've lost your goddamn mind. And either you are absolutely nuts, either you are absolutely on drugs, or this is purely political expedience. It is purely political expedience. You don't want to have that conversation. And understand, there's more to this than just them not wanting to have the conversation. It gets more insidious than that. And I haven't heard anybody talking about it. So I'm going to talk about it. Wars, strife, struggle, calamity, particularly when you're talking about some kind of foreign conflict. Wars are the graveyards where movements go to die. It is. Before World War I, World War II, Vietnam, there were persistent and strident movements in this country, whether it was civil rights, whether it was economics. It's so strong were the socialists and the unionists back during the time of FDR that a guy, a Democrat, who showed no propensity for these progressive policies, enacted these grand sweeping changes called the New Deal, saying at the end of it, my greatest success was I saved capitalism, because he full well understood that they were coming for him. They were coming for him. In each of these cases, when there was a war, those movements stopped. They allowed the mechanisms of state to attack and suppress dissent. In this particular case, the dissent was economic fairness. And even though it was a war, they were still using that to smack down dissent and people who are resisting what that government is doing. The Democratic Party is doing the exact same damn thing. Think about it. If you think about Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King during Vietnam showed more courage, more compassion, more strength than most people will ever encounter over the course of 100 lifetimes. We always look at King with this historical context. So it's like, yes, King was a great man. From our standpoint, looking back 70 years, wow, King was a great man. That was pretty strong. Even understanding that how strong he was, it does not in any way get across what he was going through, the things, the pressures that was against him as he was making those cases for a fair society. Martin Luther King came out against the Vietnam War, and people were pissed. LBJ got rid of his security detail. You had people, his own kind, attacking him, saying that Martin Luther King was conflating the issues of civil rights and economic justice with the Vietnam War. That, yes, a war of aggression in which we killed 1 million people had nothing to do with civil rights and nothing to do with economic fairness. Martin Luther King was right. Period. He was right. In one of his famous speeches, he says, "A third casualty of the war in Vietnam is the Great Society. This confused war has played havoc with our domestic destinies. Despite feeble protestations to the contrary, the promise of the Great Society have been shot down on the battlefields of Vietnam. The pursuit of this widened war has narrowed domestic welfare programs, making the poor, white, and Negro bear the heaviest burdens, both in front and at home. Understand what he's saying. He's saying that LBJ had this idea of a great society, a burgeoning middle class, and for the most part, on the domestic front, LBJ was relatively progressive. At the same token, while he was having this war, the resources and the things that, whether it was manpower, material, went to the war, not to the public itself. Wars are the graveyard where movements go to die. Those things are intimately tied to one another. 70 years ago, that's how long that was ago. It still rings true today. It absolutely rings true today. The Pentagon has mistraced trillions of dollars. Right before, I think it was the day before 9/11, what's the defense? Rumsfeld comes out, says the Pentagon lost track of $3.3 trillion. That number is far more now. That number is in the trillions that they don't know what happened to it. We spend more on military than the next 9 or 10 countries combined, many of which being our allies. This Russian government that they are so terrified of, that they're fomenting hatred and resentment against, their military budget, the increase that Trump made into the military budget, is a significant percentage of everything Russia spends on their military. This is obscene. This is absolutely immoral. And it completely misses the point of life. It completely guts resources and uses those resources to murder, to maim, to kill, to hurt. Certainly we can do better than that. The Democratic Party full well understands that their center is unraveling. The thing that they called for all these years a center, that they called neoliberalism, they called centrist Democrats, which ultimately just boil down to political reason or political excuse to gut or betray their base, to allow them to take gobs of money and everything else and sell down their values and principles under this guise of, oh, we're just being moderates. We're not going to get shit accomplished because we're moderates. There is no moderates. You function based upon your own value system. If your value system is cash, if your value system is corruption, then that's the degree that you're going to function. Calling it, making the political argument of centrism is bullshit. That's exactly what it is. They full well understand that the things that they've been doing over the past X number of years is absolutely unraveling. And as such, they're looking for means to stem that tide, to prevent that unraveling and somehow maintain power. This McCarthyism, the point that I'm making, this neo-McCarthyism, is their way to try to retain power. It's their way to try to inhibit the movements that are coming from the left, because they know damn well they have nothing in their toolbox to stave those things off. Obama passed the NDAA, allowing military action on U.S. soil, in addition to indefinite detention of American citizens. Occupy scared the shit out of them. It scared the shit out of them. And I suspect that a main reason for them pushing through that policy that can put military operations on U.S. soil is because they are terrified of another movement in similar vein of Occupy Wall Street. That's the reality of the situation. Millions have left the party. And beyond the millions that have left the party, if you talk to millennials or young people, they have no affiliation or association with the party at all. At all. It is a dying party. It should be a dying party because they're not doing anything substantively to help that particular society. You are failing in your obligations to the society itself. And these guys, this Russian propaganda, they know the jig is up. That's what all this is about. They know the jig is up. Don't be one of the lemmings out here shilling for the Democratic Party. I mean, they're extraordinarily full of shit. And look, I would even make the argument, it's treasonous. I mean, understand, out of political expedience, purely out of political expedience, They're making this argument that Russia had some influence on the election that prevented their dear Hillary Clinton, the shell of a corporate candidate, from taking the presidential seat, even though they cannot make a clear justification of why Hillary Clinton should have won that particular seat. Mind you, on top of all that, it's a nuclear power nation. They are fomenting a war with a nuclear powered nation because they won't want to have the conversation about why their party is bankrupt, and they do not want to come to a come to Jesus moment of why they are losing power, why they are evaporating just within our eyesight in real time. That's the truth of the matter. And it even gets more batshit crazy than that. The hypocrisy of the argument. When Obama was passed through Stuxnet, the virus that went into Iranian computers and was destroying the centrifuges, is that an act of war? Based on this dumbass comment, that is a cyber attack. That is an act of war. If you're going to hold that policy, you need to be fucking consistent. What about, not even just that. What about the actual wars where we toppled governments? Are you fucking kidding me? Iraq, Libya, Iran, many of the South American countries. We were actively dethroning governments and putting our shills in office. Look, this annoys the shit out of me. It annoys the shit out of me. Spare me your hypocrisy. Spare me the hypocrisy. What is wrong with your party? Where the fuck is your integrity? You're literally out here trying to start a war. Confront your shock and awe, failure. Confront why the people thought an orange reality show host was somehow a better option than the shield that you wanted to put in that office. Having a vagina is not justification to be a president. Full stop. And look, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So, good luck with that. Progressives in the next coming years are going to dance on your graves. The graves of that party, that is. And we're going to sing songs about how decrepit, how corrupt, how insincere, how absolutely hypocritical, how your unbridled incompetence allowed a madman to take power. That's what we're going to do. So, foment all the shit that you want. We're not buying it. We're not buying it at all. We full well understand the reality behind the situation. We full well understand, well, this is what you're doing. We're angry about it, not because we don't see what you're doing. We're angry about it because how goddamn gross it is. We're coming. We're absolutely coming. And there is no amount of Russian smearing, there is no amount of browbeating, there is no amount of using the specter of Donald Trump as an uber goblin that's going to stop it. Your time has come. Your time has come. I'm going to leave it at that. Guys, if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe. Have a good one.